Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In this session, I am going to demonstrate the concept of port security in the Swiss Cisco switches. So, the port security concept protects the switches from the MAC flooding attack. When a system connected to a switch, for example, the PC10, okay, is connected to the switch through the port number FA0/1, okay, is um, sending frames with multiple MAC address in a malicious manner. This could make the MAC table in the switch, okay, full, and eventually it would make the switch behave like a hub. So you can see show make MAC. You can see show MAC address table, show MAC address table. Okay. So now you can see this. I'm connecting the switch with the PC20. Okay, and let's make the PC10 ping the PC20. Let's wait for the time, some time for the network to converge. Yeah, it's successful. Now you can go and check MAC address table. So you can see that FA0/1 is port is associated with the MAC address C88A. Okay. Um, so this is the MAC address. So C88, this is the MAC address of this PC10. Okay. And the port 1/1 is associated with this system. Okay, and this system MAC address is, let's see, what is a MAC address? This is the MAC address of this system. Okay, so the MAC address, when the systems communicate through the switch learns for each interface, each port, what MAC address is associated. Okay, so now this is the MAC table. This can gives the information about the different systems that are connected to the PC, to the switch through different ports, and what MAC address is associated with each and every port. Now, let's say the PC10 is sending too many frames with the different hundreds and thousands of different MAC address, and similarly PC20 also sending multiple frames with different MAC address, source MAC address. Then what happens? The MAC address size increases. It gets filled up with fake MAC addresses. Eventually, the MAC address size increases and becomes full, completely full, and no more place for any more entry. So in that situation, what happens is when the MAC address becomes full, the switch would behave like a hub. So when the switch behaves like a hub, okay, the PC10, okay, if it is sending a frame to PC20, the frame is supposed to go only to the 20, and assume there is a link to 30 and 40 in the switch. What happens if the switch is behaving like a hub? Then any message sent by one PC would be broadcast to all the ports available in the switch. So it would reach all the other systems in the network. Suppose there is a link like this, there is a link like this. Okay, then if the PC10 is sending a message, then it would go to 20, 30, and also to 40 because MAC table became full and that switch starts behaving like a hub. But when the MAC table is within the limit, what happens is like a unicast message, okay, doesn't reach other systems. For example, PC10 is sending a message to PC20, then only PC20 can receive, and the frames will not be forwarded through other ports. So PC30 or 40, they cannot access the message sent by the 10 to the 20. Okay, so this is a way the switch behaves when the MAC table is within the normal limit. So, um, in order to improve the prevent the MAC flooding attack, okay, we have to configure port security. So port security emphasizes how many MAC addresses are allowed through a specific port. For example, so here, okay, this switch has two ports. FA0/1 is connected to PC10. FA1/1 is connected to PC20. So the port security would specify, okay, how many MAC address are associated with this port. Whether it is one MAC address or two MAC address, we can specify the limit. So what happens if the this PC is sending the message through this port with a different MAC address, and if you have configured the port security, then we can prevent the MAC flooding attack. Suppose the number of MAC address allowed is only one, then what happens if this PC changes its MAC address and send a frame, then this port um, the port security configured in the port would get activated. By default, the port security um, allows the switch to shut down the port so that the PC no more it can communicate through this port to the network. By default, a shutdown is the violation um, which is configured by default. Okay. Other violations are like dropping the packets. Okay. And by default, the violation is shut down. This port will be shut down. Okay. Now, the port security can be classified into three categories. One is dynamic port security, then static port security, and sticky one is the third type. Okay, so manually configured, like you specify which MAC address is allowed. Okay, so you have to manually explicitly mention what is the MAC address that is allowed. And even if you reboot, these settings would stay there in a persistent manner. The second one is like you configure the port security, and you don't specify the MAC address, but let's say you specify how many MAC addresses are allowed through a specific port. Let's say one is allowed. If the through that port a frame comes with another MAC address, source MAC address, a new MAC address, and since the default limit is 1, okay, the other frame comes with a different MAC address, then the port by default it would be shut down. This dynamic port security, the issue is that it is not persistent. Like if it reboots, the settings would go away. So you want the port security to be dynamic, like it has to learn the MAC address. You want to specify through a specific port how many MAC addresses are allowed, but you want the switch to learn the MAC address automatically, and you want the switch to store the MAC address in a persistent manner, and the setting should stay even if the switch reboots. Then you can go for the third option, that's called sticky option. So now let me show you how to configure the port security. Let me go for the first one, dynamic port security. So I go to the switch here. Okay, already I have configured the IP address for these PC10, PC20, PC30 and PC40 and so on. Okay, now I go to the switch. Okay, in the switch I go to the config mode. I want to increase the size a little bit. Okay, so interface FA1/1. So switch port. Okay, so the first command should be like that particular port has to be in the access mode, switch port mode access, and switch port, then port security. So this is the command to enable the port security. So that's it now. So now we have configured the port security for the FA1/1. Let's see the settings. Okay, now if you go to and execute this command, show port security interface fast Ethernet 0. Okay, show port security interface FA1/1. You can see that the port security is enabled. The default violation mode is shut down. Suppose like through this port, okay, only one MAC address traffic is a system with a specific MAC address. I mean, only one MAC address maximum is allowed. If there is a violation, then this port would be shut down. Like if the PC is changing its MAC address and sending a frame with new MAC address, then this port would be shut down. So maximum MAC address default, we did not specify like how many MAC address is allowed. We did not specify, but the default one is maximum MAC address is 1. And the default violation is shut down. Okay, so far how many violations has taken place? No violations. Okay, yet. Okay, now let's say we make this ping and let's check the MAC table, show MAC address. Okay, table. So now we can see that um, So FA1/1 is this port is associated with the MAC address 1B68 of PC20. Okay, and also the port security has been enabled. Okay, the violation mode is shut down. Okay, and maximum address allowed is 1. If you want to override this, you can override. Okay, but now let's see the default things. So now what I'm going to do is like, so I just go here, and what I do is like, I put uh, a new MAC address. I change the MAC address. So after I change the MAC address, okay, just see here, it's red. The port is not functional anymore, and the port is down. So now let's execute this command, show port security interface FA1/1. So you can see that the port security is enabled and the port status is shut down. Okay, you can see here the port security, the port status earlier it was secure and it was up, but now since uh, this system, okay, it changed its MAC address. This port is now shut down. Okay, secure shutdown. Violation mode is shut down by default, and maximum MAC address is allowed. Okay, so earlier, if you check the MAC address for FA1/1, the MAC address should be 1B68. It was the earlier MAC address, but what we did, like we went inside and we changed the MAC address. Now since we changed the MAC address, because of the port security, this port is now shut down. Okay, so how many violations has taken place so far is one violation. So this is called the dynamic port security. So for example, here also we were dealing with the default one. Okay, so we can like this is the dynamic port security. We have the option here, one more option, like switch port, port security maximum 24. Okay, so here if you want to change like config the okay, interface FA1/1 switch port security. Okay, you can see there is a variable like maximum, so you can specify like how many MAC address are allowed. By default it is 1, but if you want to change you can change. Okay, if you change 2, then up to 2 MAC address, different MAC address, the switch would allow. Okay, let's say if it is 2, it would allow 2 different frames with 2 different MAC address maximum. More than that, then it would take the action. The default action is shut down. Okay, so let me clarify this point also, like what are the other violations. Okay, the other violations, this is the default one. The other violations are like dropping the frame. Okay, dropping the frame with no logging, it will drop the frame just like that, but it will not write that information in a log. Then the other option is restrict. It is also dropping the frame, but it would write the information in a log file, or we can call it as notification. Okay, So basically these two things, what it does is like just drop the frame, but the port will be active. But here the third one, the default one, it would shut down the port. It would close the door. Here it's like, the doors are open, but no traffic allowed. The traffics are just dropped. But here, the entire port is shut down. So this is the dynamic one. Let's now see the um, let's see this yeah, static one next. So now let me explain the static port security. So what I did, like I changed the switch now for you to understand clearly. Even when you practice, like you can put a new switch or remove the configurations. So let's configure this. Enable config t interface fa1/1 switch port mode access switch um, port security. Okay, so you can then switch port security, then MAC address, which MAC address you want to explicitly allow. Okay, so for example, let's say, okay, so this is the MAC address. Let's see what is the MAC address of this system. So this is the MAC address. Okay, you want to allow only this uh, MAC address through this port. So you can say, okay, so this MAC address is given. Then and show port security. Okay, interface fa1/1. So you can see that the port security is now configured, enabled. The port is up, it's functioning, working. The default violation mode is shut down. Okay, then just recall what are the other uh, violation modes. Protect, dropping the frame with no notification, dropping the frame with notification. Okay, so we are here. So now let's ping from here to here. It's successful. You can um, show MAC address table. Okay, so FA1/1 is associated with. Also show running. So you can see that this is the command. Show running is the command. For the port interface FA1/1, you can see that port security has been configured, and the port security is associated with the static MAC address. So only this is allowed through this port. So now what I'm going to do is like I'm just going to remove this link and put a new link here, and through this port. Okay, so this is our different MAC address. Let's see how um, it's working. So now you can see the port is red. So we'll see that. So port security interface FA1/1. So you can see um, the port is shut down. Okay, and how many security violations? One security violation. Because of the port security issues. Okay, so now let's go to the last one, which is sticky. So the third type of port security is sticky port security. So switch port security. The switch port security maximum how many MAC addresses are allowed. Switch port security MAC address is sticky. So the main advantage of the sticky type is like learned dynamically and saved in the configuration. So it would be saved in the configuration and persistent even after the rebooting. So let's try this laptop. So PC10 is connected to PC20 and let's ping that and check the MAC table show MAC address table and let me configure the port security. So show port security interface FA1/1. So the port security is not yet enabled. Okay, so let's enable it. Config T interface FA1/1. Switch port mode access switch port switch port security. Okay, then switch port security max. Okay, so maximum how many MAC address we want to allow. So maximum I say 2 is allowed, and then let's say um, the default violation is shut down already, you know that. Okay, if you want to change, you can even change that factor. Then we want to the main focus of this one this part is we want to configure the port security using sticky type. So switch port security. Okay, then okay, so yeah, MAC address. Then we can say okay, either you can specify the MAC address or you can say sticky. Okay, then for example, the violations, if you want to change the violations, um, let's say these are the violations, like shutdown is the default one. In case you want to change the violations, you can change the violations. So how to change the violations? And see that so switch port security violation, the default one is shut down. In case you want to change to restrict, okay, you can see the different options available. Okay, like protect, restrict. So you want like you want restrict or protect or shut down. You have three options. So either you can go for this one, okay. So restrict means drop the frames without any, yeah, with logging, or we can say as notification, or you can go for protect, drop the frames without any notifications or without any logging, and the default one is shutdown. So switch port security violation. I am not doing that because like I am using the shutdown one, default one. Okay, so switch port security violation. So now we are here. So if you want like switch port security, okay, then question mark, then violation, question mark, then we can say shutdown. Okay, however, it is the default one. So we have configured the port security. Let's check the status and show port security interface FA1/1. So it is enabled and the port is up, and uh, maximum MAC address you can refer with the previous ones. The default one is 1. Okay, however, we overwritten this value with 2. Maximum 2 MAC address is allowed. Okay, so the violation shutdown, if you want, you can change to restrict or protect. And now already um, the system, okay, is pinging with this one. So now for each port, switch knows the associated MAC address. FA1/1 is associated with the MAC address 1C11, 1C11. So now what I'm going to do is like going to remove this stuff connection, and I'm going to connect with this system. So let's wait for some time. Show stable, and let's ping this here. Successful. So because 2 MAC address is allowed. So you can see that FA1/1 is associated with 1C11 because like earlier this port was connecting to the PC20, and now we have removed the 20 and connection with the switch in that FA1/1 port, and we are connecting that port with the PC30. So PC30 MAC address is this. So for this specific port, 2 MAC addresses are associated with it. And if you check the port security. Still the port is up. It's fine. There is no violation so far. Everything going well. So let's cancel this and connect with the 40. Let's wait for some time for the network convergence. Then we ping this. Let us ping this. Yeah, it has gone to red. So let's investigate that. So when we investigate, we can find that the port is shut down, and the violation is 1. Because of this violation, so what's the violation? Through this port, we have already configured only 2 MAC addresses allowed. But when we try to connect with the third system with a different third MAC address, okay, and if when this system tried to communicate through this port, then this port got shut down because of this port security violation. And you can see the MAC address. Um, yeah, it's temporarily got removed. Show running. If you go to running, if you can see that this particular port, FA1/1, is associated with 2 MAC address. Okay, so basically, like uh, the PC20 was connected first, so its MAC address is 1C11, and it is stored. It is attached with this interface with this port, and then we connected the PC30, and its MAC address is 1B68, and it is also stored in the configuration. So only these 2 MAC addresses are now allowed. Any frames from these 2 MAC addresses are allowed because already we have configured maximum 2 MAC address. So when the third system tried to send the frame through the same port, then the violation was detected and the port was shut down. So this is how the sticky type. You see, we did not enter the MAC address manually. However, what happens in the sticky type? Okay, so when initially like we have configured maximum 2 allowed. So when two different, the first two MAC address, different MAC address, which source MAC address which enter through this port is learned and stored in the configuration. So any other MAC address, if it try to frames try to go across this port, then the port is shut down. So this is how the sticky type is functioning. So with this, I conclude the port security lecture. Thank you very much.